Hi, my friends. So, I have a little curiosity to share with you. It's not a curiosity in all parts of the world, but it's a curiosity, I think, in the United States. And this is the Oracle Belline, or the Belline Oracle, and it's a French deck. And I got this on eBay. I've been curious about it for a while. In fact, following some groups on Facebook, there have been some, I think specifically French, as in France, users talking about how the Belline Oracle, or the Oracle Belline, is a deck that they used or learned early on. And I've heard this referred to as sort of the Oracle deck of France. And interestingly, I think when maybe we think of French Oracle decks, we think of the Lenormand, which of course is German and associated to Marie Lenormand, who used a playing card deck. So there's a lot of sort of curious, appellations and connections to cartomancers and whatnot. But this is an equally interesting connection to the puzzle. So from what I understand, this was created by a seer, a clairvoyant, earlier in the history, probably in the 1800s, and then in the kind of mid 1900s associated with Belline, who was the person who sort of created the system around it, or documented anyway the system around it. Now, there's some interesting things about this deck that I'm curious about. First, I got this on eBay. It's really only available in France, and I found it from a French seller. I had heard of this deck for a while, and I have seen walkthroughs of this that have a higher quality set to this. So I've seen editions of this deck that have gilded edges, for example, which this one doesn't, but a similar box. I don't know if I wound up in buying this on eBay with a newer edition that's a little more cheaply produced, or if this is a unofficial reproduction. It's hard to tell. But what's most important to me, of course, is that it's here, and I'm always really interested in French systems because just genealogically my family is French. So that's interesting to me. And with Lenormand being really German, I'm always on the lookout for French decks. So I have the Carte de la Graille, which is this French beautiful oracle deck. I don't use much because it really gives me these very serious, kind of foggy, dim readings. Beautiful, but sort of a lot. And then I'm thinking of other obviously the Oracle of Reflections, or l'Oracle de Reflet, beautiful but modern, and the Marseille Tarot. So I'm just sort of interested in general of French systems. So I ordered this on eBay. I don't think it was super expensive, and it arrived fairly quickly. I'm not, again, super certain of its authenticity in terms of the production, but it comes in this great sort of snakeskin box with, this. It's really, I don't know if you can see this in the video, but it's really textured, and there's this embossed, gilded title. And it opens up, and it's a nice box. It really is, and it's the snakeskin all around, and then the cards are inside. Now again, I have seen editions of this that are gilded on the edges. This one isn't, and I was semi sort of surprised that it wasn't, because it looks just like other editions I've seen. But that's not the end of the world. And again, producers will frequently opt for, less expensive production techniques as decks enter, further production. So, I'm not bothered by it. It has straight edges, straight corners. I may trim them. It is a little sharp, and there's some decks where I don't mind that, like the Robert and Place Vampire Tarot, the Jean Noblette, Marseille. This one I might. It just, it's a small enough deck, and it just, I don't want to constantly get attacked by the corners. So here are the cards, and then it comes with this little guidebook, and the guidebook actually has English in it, which I was really excited to hear. And one of the things that was really exciting to me was that, let me get there, was the idea that, you know, there aren't really rules for this. So in the guidebook, let me just sort of show you. So you've got French, and you've got English, and then I think German at the end. But in the middle, you get the English. So you get the Belline Oracle deck, reserved personally for your name. And it says in tiny, tiny print here, these very magnetic cards should not be used except by their possessor, who shall derive beneficent lights from them. And it says copyright Grimaud 1961. So this is a Grimaud deck, and then it goes through a little story of the Oracle cards, and then it talks about the artist, the person who created them, and then it goes through the fundamentals of the cards. And one of the things that was interesting to me, I'm just going to read this really quickly. The clairvoyant Belline, who gives you hereafter very valuable advice and 4 methods for interpretation of the Oracle cards, is above all anxious to specify that no rule is enforced. The neophyte is bound to discover his own in good time, as it is at the price of effort that one wins over initiation. The reward shall be in the proportion of trouble, and as it is, this profitable game, unique in the world, shall develop intuitive intelligence, reasoning, and memory. In familiarizing yourself with the big enigma, it shall give you, besides knowledge, a well-being precious beyond all others, self-confidence. The linguistics are, you know, a little wonky because it's a fairly poor translation into English, but it gives you some methods, but it also says, you know, there aren't really rules here. So here's how you count the cards. You can count the cards. You can use the first name method, the cosmic number method, the cross method. There's a spread. It gives you some tips and techniques. And then it goes into the meanings of the cards. And that's really it. But I think this is actually really valuable and really great. Because it's an interesting oracle, and it's different in a lot of ways from others. All right, so here's what you get. So you get this sort of signed little note here in French, signed by Belline, and you know, again, you could translate this, and then a little sort of instruction card. This blue title card, or not title card, but this blue sort of introductory card seems to have some meaning. It's actually not described in the book, but I've seen YouTube videos who have talked about why. I could see this actually representing the significator in an interesting way, but it doesn't have a specific association. And while I'm at it, I might as well show you the backs, which are kind of awesome. I think I will round these corners, I have to say. But I'm just, you know, getting that in the sense. So what I'm going to do right now is zoom in and share with you the cards. And there's some interesting things about this deck. Whoops. Here we go. Let's just get things sorted. And adjust the light accordingly. There we go. So it's a 52 card deck. And there are French titles on each. The interesting thing about French is that if you have the slightest connection to French, Italian, Spanish, any of the Latinate Romance languages, you'll actually find a lot of the cards are cognates. So it's fairly easy to sort of get a sense of what they are just by looking at those cards or the titles. But what I'm going to do in this video is use the little booklet here and share with you what the titles are. Whoops. This is what happens when you have a very lightweight tripod. Let's get this boink sorted out. I really need a better tripod. Who cares though? All right, so let's move this out of the way. So there is this blue card which has some sense of meaning, but again, I haven't gotten that sense from the little booklet. So we get into card 1 here, and card 1 It's literally the key. It's called the Key Destiny. It gives a first rank importance to the card it immediately precedes. So it seems to elevate the importance of the card that it's before. And it also suggests a decision. And then we have two cards that are essentially similar to the man and the woman in Lenormand. So we have the Man Star. The consultant represents a masculine influence in a woman's game, or the Woman Star represents a woman's influence in a man's game. I love that they call it a game. So you get a sense here of, again, significators in essence with these two cards, or someone that they're in a relationship with, or that's a powerful influence on their life. All right, whoops. So those are not necessarily cards that have powerful specific meanings. But then we get into card 4. And card 4 is the horoscope. And that suggests nativity, birth, apparition, or hatching, or an outbreak. Now, each section of these cards is associated with the astrological decans or signs, etc. Now, I don't know a whole lot about astrology, but I don't think you need to work with these. I think they are categorized in a way that if you know the astrology, you get a sense of the categories these fall into. But I don't think you need to be an astrological expert to work with them. So, but this is the horoscope, again, represents nativity, birth, apparition, or hatching. So there's an egg-like quality to this. This is card 4. Card 5 is the Medal of Success, and that suggests the result of something or a reward for something. Oh, my desk has sort of broken open. I'll leave it that way. All right. Whoops, I moved the tripod again. So again, card 5, the Medal of Success, result, remuneration, or reward. And the card title here, some of them, again, are really easy to get a sense of in English, and some of them aren't. But the card title here, yeah, this is not a cognate, it's réussite. What I may do, maybe, is gently write the English keywords on the card. I've done that before. So this is card 6, and it's the pyramid, which suggests, again, the keyword here, elevation, suggests the English cognate, which is elevation, which suggests progress, improvement, perfecting, or continuation, a work in progress. And a pyramid is actually a really interesting example of that. Excuse me. Card 7 is honor, honorary distinction, first rank position, success, or moral values. Card 8 is the dog, which is very close to Lenormand. Friendship, friendly relations, faithfulness, also thought, which is interesting. Card 9 is the garden. So that suggests, different from Lenormand, countryside, holidays, rest, relaxation, honest nature, easy nature, rural manners, naturalism, or health. So more like the tree than the garden in Lenormand. So card 10 is the presence. And again, there's a nice cognate there because it is plaisant. Presence, gifts, gratuities, what is obtained by favor, or tactful attentions. So now we move into another sign, the sign of the moon. I think that was the sign of the sun we were just looking at, but in the sign of the moon, the category suggests emotion, mystery, water, and night. So number 11, which is the black cat, actually is the devil. And that suggests betrayal, bad luck, lewdness, covetousness. It minimizes chances of success next to successful cards. So in a very kind of cartomantic French sense of, again, like what Lenormand does, you get a sense of how distance or closeness to cards affects the connection. Here's another card consistent with Lenormand, but with different meanings. So this is the birds, and it actually suggests departure, which is what the French cognate here suggests, absence or abandon. So it's not about gossip, it's not about talking, it's not about anxiety. It's more like the stork, it's moving on, it's moving away, it's departure. This card is the wind. I love this. The wind is inconsistent, so it suggests changeable characters, promises that won't be kept, or harsh words. And then one of the things that the guidebook does is it says, with this card it suggests this. So with card 38, it suggests a catastrophe, an aerial catastrophe. Card 14 is the telescope. So very obviously it suggests discovery, or a lucky find, but interestingly it also suggests spying. Here we have card 15, which is water. So it's not about the ship so much as what it's floating on. And but it is similar to the ship in a sense in Lenormand. So you've got ocean voyage, feeling passivity. It suggests a foreign country, something that's exotic, what is far away, or what comes from something that's far away. And then again, it suggests with another card, card 38, drowning, flood, or shipwreck, right? So, drama. There are a couple tower-esque cards, but they're in different states. And so card 16 is called the castle, and it's sort of like the house card in Lenormand. So it suggests where you live, the house, your residence. It also suggests fatherhood, which I guess sort of, in a patriarchal sense, just based on the shape of a tower, you get a very phallic sort of fatherhood shape. Just generally sort of the sense where one usually stays, it says. 17 is the eagle or the toad, and this is an interesting card. So it suggests wellness or sickness. It reminds me of the sickness card in Sibylla. Malaise, disease, fit or epidemic, or the doctor, in essence. And then again, it connects it to another card. So, with card 48, it could suggest a fatal disease. Again, I don't really read for health with these things, particularly because I don't think it's all that effective. So now we move into the next section. And again, I don't know the astrological signs. There are videos of these cards out there that have associations, and that may be helpful for you. But we move into this next section, which suggests and encompasses social relationships, communications, intelligence, etc. It's associated with the suit of air. So the first card is the stars. And again, a card that's common to Lenormand, but in this case, it suggests evolution, changes, movement, sort of, an evolution or evocation, innovations, a lapse of time, or a lunar month. So really interesting there. Here we have the Cornucopia, which is about money, capital, investments, goods, earnings, resources. It's also about harvesting. So in a sense, it's the more positive reading of the scythe card, or the fish in Lenormand. We've got card 20, which is the book, and the book suggests intelligence, knowledge, science, understanding, intellectualism, and adaptability, which I think is interesting because it's this kind of interestingly theatrical connection to books. Sort of adapting one thing into another. Here we've got the bat. And in a lot of modern decks, the bat is a positive thing, but in this one, it suggests actually kind of the mice. So it's theft, loss, breach of trust, negligence. Here we have card 22, the plan. So this suggests an undertaking, so it could be a project, real estate matters, negotiation, progress. It also suggests contrivance. Card 23 is Mercury's wand, so there's a connection there to like Hermes. And this is interesting. It doesn't necessarily have the kind of modern association to health that this card or this image might. It's really about business, trading, banks, the stock exchange, insurance brokers, chambers of commerce, lawyers, and even journalism. Here we have the Comet, which is kind of like the communication cards in other decks, like the birds, for example. So this suggests messages, letters, phone calls, surprises, and just sort of unexpected arrivals. Now we move into the next phase, and this is the emotional being, the joy of living, the aesthetic of life. Yes. So card 25 is the Liar. Liar suggests pleasures, pleasance, amusements, jewels, just sort of a general sense of yumminess, I would say. 26. This is called the Bundle Axe. And oddly, it suggests peace and harmony and understanding. So, where a card like this in Lenormand might suggest cutting, finalization, severance, this is actually, in this system, about peace and harmony and reconnecting. This is the altar card, and actually, this is not unlike the ring or in Sibylla, union or marriage. So this is the altar. And again, it suggests union, marriage, weddings, intimacy, associations coming together, coming back, devotion. So again, there's like a connective tissue to the altar card, and it does have the cognitive union here, which actually makes it really easy to remember. This is the pelican, and this suggests, it's a lot like the house, theoretically, or a combination of the house in Lenormand and the stork. So this is family, the things that you're tied to by blood, or more broadly, it says in the book, society. So it's both kind of the house, the family, and community, the people around you. This is the two hearts. So this is sort of the love card. This would be the heart or the love card in Sibylla. I love this. So this card is titled the Amphora, but the keyword is la table, which is the table. And amphora is really a jug that wine was stored in, but this suggests, in a situation sort of like Lenormand, it would be the bouquet, an invitation. But in general sense, again, sort of like the garden, it would be banquets, social life, and just going out. And then finally in this section, we've got the wounded hearts. So this, while it looks like it would be a negative, is actually not. It suggests just hearts in general, passions, enthusiasm, infatuation, or things that peter out really quickly. Isn't that interesting? Because it's sort of, it's both love in general in the sense of, in essence, lust, that thing that sort of comes up and burns powerful and then kind of burns out really quickly. Whoops. Oh, Ben. I'm never gonna make an elegantly unsmacked video. Alright, let's just make sure the light is right. Alright, so now we move into the next section. And the next section is energy, impulse, violence, and fire. So we start with the lantern. Interesting, the lantern, which I would think would light things up for you and show you the way, has to do with wickedness, evil, jealousy, and envy. Go figure. The swords, the two short swords here, chicanery or trickery, so things that aren't honest, but also discussions, litigations, law. And then what makes most sense to me is the idea of Antigone, of Greek drama, of antagonism and jealousy, of opposition. Card 34 is the bound one. So this suggests despotism, which is sort of like, being a despot is being a controlling leader who, doesn't allow for others to have what they have. It's an interesting thing because this doesn't represent the person that's talking about it. It represents the effect that the person is having on the person you're reading for. So in essence, it's about the effect of being a victim, of being misunderstood, of having to sacrifice, of being falsely judged, which is interesting. So in essence, it's sort of like the darker aspects of the Hanged Man. Then we get the Blade and the Snake. This is about enemies, brawls, attacks, aggressions, acts of violence. The Island of Birds is about negotiation, conversation, discussion, and secret meetings. So this has the Island of Birds, rather than just the birds in general that we looked at earlier, has a closer sense of the birds in Lenormand, which is about talking. But this is specifically, in essence, about negotiating, but then also discussions, and then just like covert meetings, like sort of secret, things that are happening. Then we have card 37, which is the Torch, and it simply represents fire, sort of whatever fire suggests. And then it says ardor and spontaneity. So you get a sense of sort of like lust and lustiness, but also like impulsiveness. Now we move into the next section, which is associated with social situations, success, benevolence, and protections. So we start with the Crowned Eagle, which suggests support, protection, someone, who might be supporting you or protecting you because they're powerful. 39 is... Oh, no. Whoops. Did I miss something? Oh, I did. I missed the Blasted Tower. So before we move to the section of social situations, we get the Blasted Tower. This is about accident and upheaval. It's very much like the Tower in Tarot. This is protections. This is the Crowned Eagle support from someone powerful. This is the Royal Flower, which is just generally about beauty, youth, expectations that'll be realized. It's sort of a seed card, an optimistic card. 41 is the Wizard's Book of Spells. And what this is really about, for its fancy name, is inheritance. It's about legacy. It's about what you get from those who came before you. The owl is very sort of traditionally owl associations. Wisdom, moderation, reflection, sort of thoughtfulness. The trumpet. This, in essence, is not unlike the Moon card in Lenormand, because it's about sort of reputation and perception, celebrity being well known, talents being appreciated, the perception of others, and the perception they have of you. This is the Wheel of Fortune, and very much like the Wheel of Fortune in Tarot. So chances, luck, speculations, gambling, and opportunity. Now we move into the next section, and this is about endeavor, discipline, perseverance, and just generally life. So it says here, fatality, time, earth. So we start, whoops. Oh, I skipped another one, sorry. This is, wait, do I have things out of order? 43 is the trumpet. This is the Wheel of Fortune. This deck actually did not come in order either. 45. The Seer Star. I did skip one. So this is the Wheel of... Whoops, I don't know what I did there. This is the Wheel of Fortune. This is the Seer Star, which is about happiness and vocation. Here we get into the section of endeavor, discipline, and perseverance, and fatality and time and earth. So we start with the Mendicant, which is basically like bad luck, old age, all the associations that we stereotypically associate with getting older. The Desert Island is about sterility, but also utopias, which is interesting. useless attempts, and deadlock. A lot of array of things going on there. I hate this tripod. Then we get time, which suggests fate, limits, bounds, maturity, and also death, the end, sort of the limit. 49 is the dove, and that suggests gracefulness, sudden change, but in a good way, compassion, prayer, art, and mysticism. I love these old sort of fortune-telling decks and their tendency to sort of have a card represent everything from gracefulness to mysticism. This is the Ruins, and this makes sense. It's about dwindling, decline, decay, superstitions, and also sort of like the Tower of Tarot, out of date tendencies, old influences. Card 51 is the Wheel in the Rut, it's called, which suggests delay. The keyword here, retard, suggests slowness. And dead seasons, it says in the guidebook, prospects and delays. Whoops. And then I think finally, we've got the Cloister. And that is not unlike the Hermit in a sense of retiring within, but also being a little grim in the head, in essence. So that's a look at the cards, and that's just a sense of their meanings as we look at it. Now, again, I did mention that the blue tinted card here sort of is supposedly having meaning, but again, the guidebook does not talk about it. So what I'm going to do right now is just get again, I have seen videos of this deck where the cards are gilded, and it seems like they're a little bit better quality than what I've wound up with. But having wound up with some bootleg decks, I don't think this is. I mean, this cardstock feels a little more expensive than like a cheap bootleg deck might, but who knows? It certainly was more expensive than that. But this is not a deck that's, it's you can't really find it in the US unless you go on eBay and you find a French seller willing to ship to the US. Now, with these sort of cartomancy decks, I don't think general readings are all that helpful. These decks really seem to sort of want a question. So if I were to do a sample question with this, I'll actually use a method in the book, which is this cross spread. So it says here, the cross spread answers a precise question. After having shuffled and cut, pull a card and put it without turning it over in front of yourself. This card stands for the favorable aspect of your situation. So let's just sort of say that this person wants to know about their marriage. They want to propose to this girl. It's a guy who wants to propose to a girl right out of high school. I'm just making this up, right? So let's say he's here with us. All right, so we've shuffled the deck. All right, so according to the guidebook, we have the current cut the deck. Boom. All right. So I'm going to go through this. Card A. This card stands for the favorable aspect of the question. And card A goes... Whoops. Me. So card A is sort of the left side of the cross. All right. So in theory, we're supposed to put this face down, but I'm not doing all the rules. All right. So card B stands for that which is in opposition. So this is favorable to the fact that he wants to propose to his girlfriend. This is in opposition to it. All right, card C stands for the major strength, which is above the consultant. The major strength. So I'm going to interpret that as something sort of major, but that's out of his control. And I'm just making this up. So that goes up here. Can we see that? Yes-ish. I'll adjust the light in a sec. Boink. All right. Card D represents the possible result. And then finally place a card at the center of the cross. Constitutes a synthesis of the matter, the center of gravity. All right. So we've got the key card in the middle, which is interesting. Right. So let me just sort of look at this. So what do we got? I hate this tripod. I'm just going to put that out there again, because I cannot make it behave. It's a little clearer. All right. So let's just sort of revisit here. So card A, which is this card here on the left, represents the favorable aspect. All right, so that's pretty general. And what we have is card 13, which is inconsistency, or just sort of generally, the changeability, the wind. So if this person is looking to marry somebody, the favorable aspect of it is probably that a marriage can present consistency in a world where everything's constantly changing. So life is inconsistent, but the marriage can probably provide a consistency in the fact that life ain't gonna cooperate most of the time. All right, so card B, which is this one, is something that is what's in opposition. And this is the Wheel of Fortune, if I'm not mistaken, card 44. I'm just going to double check based on the little guide here. Yep. So what's in opposition? Interestingly, from a marriage standpoint, we've got inconsistency and a sense of inconsistency. So what's in the way is that anything could happen. So life isn't consistent. That's the reason to get married. But what's standing in the way is the fact that anything can happen. Life's inconsistent. So there you go. So card C, which is what's above, is I think it's the dominating influence, right? The major strength. So sort of what's acting favorable or not with this the big force. And we've got water, which is card 15. So water out of the gate suggests inconsistency. Card 15 specifically suggests passivity and feeling, but also a journey. So what's the major strength is that he's, I think just sort of looking at this as a collective, life is shaky, things are inconsistent, things change without your control, you're always sort of at the mercy of things. So the interesting thing about marriage is that it's like no matter what you do, if you want to propose to your high school sweetheart, you're always sort of at the mercy of the tide, so to speak, or the wind, or the Wheel of Fortune. Like nothing's certain. So if you're going to do it, your expectation in essence is that you're going to do it because you want to. Nothing is certain. We look at what's below, which is, according to this particular spread, the possible result. And we've got card 37, which is fire as a keyword. Ardor and spontaneity. And so it seems like the result is like passion's going to win out. And you're just going to go for it. So if this person wants to propose to their partner, life's crazy, so you just got to go for it. And then we look at the final card in the middle, which represents... ... a synthesis of the matter, the center of gravity, and we have the key. And the key, remember from my earlier description, sort of represents, it empowers the card that follows it. So the key is destiny, and it strengthens the card that immediately precedes it. So it involves a decision. If I just think of this generally, like the key is you just sort of like go for it, but the key in connection to the card that follows it is like, you know what? Life's crazy. You can't really predict it. So if you want to propose, like, do it. You can't decide what's going to be next. Like, nothing in this suggests a certain path. Life's crazy. When you think about a marriage as the beginning of a relationship, you don't know what's going to happen. You just are like at the mercy of everything. So if you're going to do it or not, go for it. You just have to remember that to a degree, it's out of your control. So that's one way to look at it. That's from the book. Now, what I might do is kind of look at this from the point of view of my Sibylla or Lenormand reading, which is to kind of do a 9-card square, where we look at it just in terms of, again, a question, but like a slightly less rigid spread. More cartomantic spread, where we look at the rows and the columns and blah, blah, blah. And in this case, I'm not going to reference the guidebook other than to sort of detect the name if I need to. So let's say the same question. This guy wants to know, he's going to propose to his high school sweetheart, and he wants to know if, like, that's the right thing to do, if there's some potential for that being, like, a good thing. Yeah. Dropped a card. All right. So, what I normally do in this situation is I take a middle card, and then I draw a top card, and then I draw the rows columns. So this is a person who wants to know what the potential is for proposing to their childhood sweetheart, or their high school sweetheart, or whatever. And, you know, should they propose? What's the best result? So we actually have love in the middle, card 29. Again, I'm just going to reference the guidebook for the tiles. Card 29 is love, 2 hearts. But it's actually, whoops. It's actually connected, if I look at these 2 cards, which I usually do, to the wheel that's sort of stuck, the rut, in essence, the slowness. So this relationship, this feeling, is actually keeping him sort of stuck in the mud. Right out of the gate, I have my answer. But I look at the rows and the columns just to sort of take my thesis and validate it or explore why. So again, we have the rut, and then card 31 is wounded hearts. But again, that represents passion in general. Card 22 is the plan. Real estate matters, questions under negotiation. So it's like you're in love now, but you're also sort of negotiating what your future is, like where you're going. So it feels good now, but you're actually sort of in a slow situation where you really need to think about where you're going and what the long-term results are going to be. Around the middle row here, we have the bound person, and card 52, which is the last card in the deck, which is about retiring within. So interestingly, you know, this feels like a good love relationship, but you're actually sort of stuck feeling alone. And then I look at the bottom row. We have card 8, which is the dog, so there's loyalty. We have a card 9, which is the garden, and that's about rest, relaxation. So you're sort of loyal to your sense of like self-care. But then we jump to the tower, card 50. Right, card 50, yeah, the ruins. So, like, this relationship feels good right now, but it's actually probably going to have an impact on your long term self care. Now, if I look at the columns, this rut, the bound one, and loyalty. So it's like your loyalty actually keeps you stuck in the mud and sort of bound to a relationship. Your passion seems good. You know what I mean? You're again, I'm just sort of checking. You're feeling good about where things are right now. This is the hearts. Again, it's passion in general. You're in love. You know, you feel sort of comfortable with that. But as you look long term, your plans are actually probably to spend some time alone and to get rid of like the standard, the standard things. You're going to want to sort of blast forward from the reality. You know, the traditions, as it were. So interestingly, slide this down. Interestingly, it feels good now, but by and large, it's not. This isn't the person you're supposed to marry because by and large, you have other plans at stake. So, kind of cool, very Lenormand style in its way, a little bit like Sibylla as well. One of the cool things about the book is that it's like, look, you're gonna figure it out. Listen to the cards. There aren't really rules. You're gonna find as much here as a novice as you will as a pro, if you're open to it. So, that's a little look and a little experiment with the Oracle Belline, which is very popular in France. Again, this seems to be a deck that a lot of people start with as a reader in France, which I think is really interesting, and I'm excited to have it. Again, I can't, speak to sort of the situation with the deck in terms of its quality. The box seems like what I've seen before. It feels very authentic. The cards I've seen in other walkthroughs have been gilded and they feel a little bit like, there's been some care there. But again, things happen with longer term productions of decks. So that's a longish look, more longer than I expected really, at the Oracle Belline, which is a French oracle system. And I hope this was interesting, and be good.